Oh, this game sucks. Here we go! Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and I'm sorry if that opening line offends you, but this game fucking sucks. But before we get into that, I gotta explain what this game is for the 2 people watching who have never heard of it. First released on the OG PlayStation in 1996, development for the game began in 1993, with producer Tokuro Fujiwara putting Shinji Mikami in charge of remastering Fujiwara's 1989 horror game Sweet Home. Mikami was hesitant to work on the project at first, as he didn't like to be scared, which is funny coming from the guy who would go on to work on more than 10 horror games, including 8 more games under the Resident Evil banner. He also worked as an executive producer on the original Ace Attorney trilogy, and I just think that's interesting.
Nice. I've been thinking about taking some law classes, and it's got me thinking about taking some law classes because that's what I was thinking about. And after meeting you, I don't want to be a lawyer.
Oh, really?
It sounds like a really job, and you're not really good at it. And everyone hates you afterwards. I mean, not as much as if you're a voice actor in anime, but they still hate you.
Over the game's development cycle, it morphed from a first-person psychological horror game similar to Sweet Home into a third-person, more action horror-style game inspired by George Romero films. The game was officially released in Japan under the name Biohazard. However, since Capcom wouldn't be able to trademark Biohazard in America, the name was changed to the more familiar Resident Evil. Upon its release, it was widely praised, which just goes to show how far we've come in the past 25 years. To this day, it is still credited as being the game to define the survival horror genre and restore zombies in pop culture. Now we fast forward to the year 2002. After 3 main games and 3 spin-offs, Mikami decided it was time to enhance the original, as he believed its poor graphics prevented new fans from enjoying the game. Originally a part of an exclusivity agreement with Nintendo, the game released solely on the GameCube and featured enhanced graphics, effects, translations, inventory, and more. This remaster would then get its own HD remaster in 2015, releasing on modern consoles and PC with surround sound and that crisp 1080p quality, so you can really see how poorly these graphics aged. Resident Evil is one of the pillars of Capcom and the horror genre as a whole, but how well does the grandfather of the survival horror genre hold up after 2.5 decades? Well, I kinda gave that away already, but nonetheless, let's give it everything we've got! The game opens in the fictional Arklay Mountains in the year 1998, and we soon meet our 2 protagonists, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. They're members of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS for short. They, along with Barry Burton and Albert Wesker, have been sent to find out what happened to the Bravo team. After being attacked by some demon doggies, they are forced into the Spencer Mansion. The design of the Spencer Mansion was actually influenced by the Overlook Hotel from The Shining, and the backgrounds were all pre-rendered with the 3D models of the characters and the enemies superimposed on top of them. I'd also like to mention that this game allows you to choose between playing as Chris or Jill at the beginning. I chose Jill, and I won't be going over the differences between the two because no way in hell am I playing through this game a second time. I know some reviewers think it's their responsibility to play through every inch of the game, but I see it this way. If one playthrough made me despise the thought of playing through it again, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about the quality of the game? Why would I look further when it hasn't warranted me getting as far as I already did? I am probably making so many people upset by trashing this game, but we carry on nonetheless. Right away in the exploration of the Spencer Mansion, we come across one of my least favorite mechanics in any game I have ever played. These door opening cutscenes. No joke, you get a slow first-person cutscene showing a door opening and you walking through it every single time you open a door. In the original, this was a clever way to mask loading screens and not break immersion. But newsflash, this is a PlayStation 1 game playing on a PlayStation 4. It was for me anyway. You shouldn't need loading screens between every room! And it wouldn't be such a big problem if going back and forth across this huge mansion wasn't the core of the game! It's done a complete 180 and become an immersion killer! Early on in your exploration of the Spencer Mansion, you come across one of the only effective jump scares in this entire game in a room with a shotgun in it. As Jill, you can grab the shotgun right away, as Barry will save you from the trap and make a now famous joke about your near painfully excruciating death experience.
A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
The fuck?
Fighting through more zombies, you eventually find a green herb and a safe room. Green herbs can be used to restore health and can be combined with red herbs to restore even more health, as combining and crafting things is one of the survival elements of the game. Safe rooms are where you will, obviously, be able to save the game. There's also a chest in the safe room where you can store items to free up room in your very limited inventory. The contents of the chest are shared between every safe room, so you don't have to remember what you stored where. That would be helpful if it weren't for the fact that there are only 2 goddamn safe rooms in the entire fucking mansion, and they're on opposite sides of the map! While I'm in a bad mood, I might as well talk about the zombified inhabitants of this mansion that is ironically lacking any kind of shine. The zombies are slow and don't pose much of a threat as long as you are smart with your limited ammo. The best way to take them out is headshots, yet to actually pull off a headshot you have to aim way above their head like you're trying to shoot an imaginary stack of apples. Also, there's a chance that zombies you have killed will get back up later if you don't burn their body, which requires inventory space you just don't have. Since a lot of this particular section of the game is essentially just repeating the same general cycle until completion or suicide, whichever comes first, I'm not going to go too in depth. Basically, you go around the mansion searching for specific keys and items to get said keys, which unlock new areas that allow you to access another key. Putting the gold shield where the wooden shield used to be gets you another key, which you use to get another amulet and open up the next floor of the mansion. After going on a fetch quest to find the antidote to this Richard guy's poison only for him to die anyway like an asshole, you have to confront the culprit behind that dick's poisoning, a giant snake named Yawn. At least they knew their game was boring. After a few hits, Yawn leaves and leaves behind the next amulet. The 4th amulet is obtained after completing a puzzle that the Riddler would copy 19 years later, and you are finally granted the privilege of going outside. Yet Jill decides not to Valendash her ash off the second most insane place to start with an A, instead choosing to investigate the guardhouse. This is when the game temporarily forgets it's a zombie game, as all of the threats against you are snakes, wasps, and sharks. That's just a normal day to an Australian. You know, when they're actually allowed to go outside and not be held in camps for a private health decision, but I digress. After defeating a giant plant tentacle monster, this is a Japanese game after all, you get a key for the mansion. How the f*** you got all the way down here in a fireplace guarded by Poison Ivy's second in command, I have no idea. Wow, a lot of opportunities for Batman references today. Speaking of Batman references, upon returning to the mansion, you encounter these prepubescent killer croc looking motherfuckers called hunters, who are real bitches to deal with until you get the Python gun. Luckily, that's the first thing you do after returning. You then have to find an elevator battery, but your progress is impeded by... I'm
a slithery little sneaky snake.
In probably the easiest boss fight in the game to cheese, you send this serpentine son of a bitch slithering to hell once and for all. Shortly after doing so, you get a blue book. You got the red book much earlier, and inside both of them are amulets which are used to unlock the final area.
Oh, fuck, shit, bitch, damn cocksucker, pussy, asshole, cunt, motherfucking dirty whore, shat onto my lunch.
If I ever have a mansion, I'm definitely making sure I have a waterfall with a secret ladder behind it. My ladder would lead to an underground pool, but let's see what the Spencers decide to build down under. It's just caves. Awesome. You know, for a game called Resident Evil, you'd think we'd spend more time in the residence, but what can I say? I'm not a billion-dollar horror franchise. After a character is introduced, just to say there's an imposter among us, only to get fucking bodied literal seconds later, and you Indiana Jones your way to progress, you come across a giant spider, because let's just throw in any common phobia to make up for the fact that the zombies in this zombie game aren't scary.
Tits! Fuck yes!
Throughout the expedition, you've been learning more about the pharmaceutical company Umbrella and how they're as shady as the cover they provide. One of Umbrella's founders, Oswell E. Spencer, had this mansion built specifically as a cover for illegal bioweapon experimentation using viruses on behalf of the United States military. And because they really want to hammer home the point that Umbrella is the evil in Resident Evil, the game tells the story of George Trevor, the man who built the mansion, and his family. Spencer realized that George knew all of the mansion's secrets, so captured him, his wife Jessica, and their 14-year-old daughter Lisa, and used them as test subjects in their experiments with the progenitor virus. Jessica died almost immediately, Lisa was horrifically mutated and driven insane, and George managed to escape only to die in one of his own traps like a fucking pleb. Down in the laboratory, you learn what led to Resident Illegal becoming Resident Evil. Their latest experiment, Epsilon, leaked and infected the staff, and they eventually escaped and took over the premises. While dealing with the bullshittiest of all the zombie types, you eventually reunite with Chris, or Jill, depending on who you play as, and discover the identity of the traitor, the one working for the ultimate despair. No, wait, wrong game. The one who's working for Umbrella. Yeah, that one. It's Arnold Wesker. What? You don't remember him? Well, it doesn't matter because he dies seconds later anyway, so who even cares? He explains that he's a member of the Umbrella Corporation and led Stars to the Arclay Mountains and Spencer Mansion to test the effectiveness of the mutants. He was also told to destroy the place and bring them the remaining embryo samples. He releases Umbrella's latest and greatest threat, the T-002. The mutant is also known as the Tyrant and is tasked by Wesker to kill the members of Stars. But trying to control a mutant in these games is as good as an idea as trying to force Americans to do something and expect them to do it. Here's a little hint: the more you try to force Americans to do something, the less they want to do it. And since the Tyrant is a believer in truth, justice, and the American way, which is a huge contradiction if I've ever heard one, he immediately murders the f*** of Wesker for the lulz. He then turns his attention to our heroes, and Barry, and this girl named Rebecca that's been accompanying Chris. Eventually you make it to the roof and contact your pilot, but not before the Tyrant decides to make some rooftop renovations on his way to his unscheduled rooftop reservation. You have one final battle with the Tyrant and eventually defeat him with help from your allies. The game ends with everyone flying off in a helicopter as Spencer Mansion explodes and burns. And that's definitely the end of the Umbrella Corporation and their viral outbreaks, and there aren't 7 more main games and 17 spin-offs. Was it obvious how much I don't like this game? If I put myself in the mindset of someone playing this game for the first time in 1996, I can see how it could be scary. There weren't many games like it, and horror itself was a very new genre in the video game world. However, these are my reviews based on my experiences, and I didn't play this game when it was new in 1996. I played it when it was 24 years old, and I was not scared once. If the amount of times I got frustrated and annoyed were converted into the amount of times I got scared, this would be the scariest game I've ever played. The controls are abysmal on a good day, the aiming is incredibly unintuitive, the puzzles are either insultingly obvious or needlessly complicated, the door animations drag this already slow game to a screeching halt, and the graphics prove that whoever named this game Resident Evil HD was high because that definition does not apply. The very limited inventory space and the sheer amount of required bullshit you have to lug around also squeezes any tension or immersion out of this game, as there's nothing scary about having to pause all your progress and spend 15 minutes running between 30 of the same door opening cutscenes to get back to your safe room so you can deposit something just to spend another 15 minutes going back through those 30 copies of the same door opening cutscene to pick up another item you'll need later, just so you can then go back through those 30 cutscenes and put the item you just got in the chest as well. The plotting of this game is abhorrent. 90% of it is spent randomly uncovering information about Umbrella until all of a sudden there's a traitor subplot, and the traitor ends up being a character you rarely if ever see after the opening of the game. And to make matters worse, he gets killed moments after he's revealed as the traitor, just to show how dangerous the Tyrant is. But even that ends up being underwhelming since the Tyrant isn't around long enough to feel like an actual threat. And it didn't have to be this way. Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 got complete graphical and narrative overhauls that are exponential improvements over the original versions. So why didn't the original get the same love? Because Capcom decided to be lazy and port a 13-year-old remaster to modern consoles and have the audacity to call it an HD remaster. Nothing about this game holds up anymore. There's an interesting story about a corrupt pharmaceutical company experimenting with deadly viruses to create even deadlier bioweapon soldiers, but it's buried beneath this frankly boring mansion and its equally as boring exterior. And I hate that I have to say that. I love stories about uncovering the mysteries of a strange building and exploring all of its dark secrets, and they somehow f***ed it up. I've played better horror games than this. I've played better survival games than this. The best I can give it is a 2.5 out of 10. I can see how at one time it was good, but not now. Not anymore. I'm gonna go lay down and take a few mental health days. I'm gonna need them too, since next time we journey into the city of the Trash Panda to see that things aren't as over as I prayed. I hope to see you there.
Continue.